Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the City of Muskegon City Commission meeting for July 14th, 2015. Before we begin proceedings, I'd like to invite Commissioner Willie German to lead us in prayer, which will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay, let us bow our heads. Father God, we come to you today in the name of your precious Son, Jesus Christ. We ask that you look down on this meeting as we as commissioners are guided by you and your wisdom. We ask that you unify us in this community to bring us closer together and allow us to make the right choices that will benefit not some, but everyone, to make it a safe community, more prosperous community as you give us your vision. We ask that you look down on our public safety officers, our firemen, and our policemen and protect them and the children. So we just ask for you to do this in your Son's name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner. May we have the roll call, please?
Mayor Gallron,
Here.
Commissioner Hood,
Here.
Vice Mayor Spataro,
Here.
Commissioner German,
Here.
Commissioner Muskegon,
Here.
Commissioner Turnquist,
Here.
Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Thank you. I do have one recognition this evening. Well, we won't be here tomorrow night, and I forgot to bring the birthday cake, but tomorrow is the birthday of our Vice Mayor, our dear friend Lorenzo Ascari Spitaro. So we wish him a happy birthday, and may we all raise our voices in song. Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday dear Larry, happy birthday to you. Congratulations on another year.
Thank you, everybody.
May we have the consent agenda, please?
Approval minutes, City Clerk, summary request. To approve minutes of the June 30th, 2015 City Commission meeting. Staff recommendation, approval of the minutes. Annex lease, City Manager, summary request. City staff has been working with an organization that intends to operate a sports training and rehabilitation center in the L.C. Walker Arena Annex building. The annex is currently used intermittently throughout the year for concerts, dinners, and other gatherings. Staff is seeking approval for a 5-year lease agreement with IMA Jam Incorporated that is expected to significantly increase the usage of the building. This lease agreement will help city staff reduce costs associated with the L.C. Walker Arena, as the tenant will become responsible for utilities and general maintenance. Additionally, the lease agreement calls for a nominal fixed rent of $1 per month plus a percentage of the tenant's annual gross revenue. The lease agreement further calls for the city and the tenant to split the needed improvements to the annex 50-50. Staff recommendation to approve the request and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the agreement. Community Relations Committee recommendation, City Clerk, summary request. To concur with the recommendations from the Community Relations Committee to accept the resignation of John Smith from the Construction Board of Appeals, appoint Harold Collender to the Construction Board of Appeals, and appoint Pastor Leroy Lockhart to the Equal Opportunity Committee. Staff recommendation to concur with the recommendations.
Commissioners, you've heard the consent agenda as presented. Are there any items you wish to have removed for further discussion? Commissioner Johnson?
Seeing none, I would move that we approve the consent agenda as read.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Johnson, seconded by Commissioner Hood to accept the consent agenda as read. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hood,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Spataro,
Yes.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Muskegon,
Yes.
Commissioner Turnquist,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Mayor Gallron.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. New business, please.
Concurrence for the Housing Board of Appeals notice in order to demolish the following: public safety, 1258 5th Street, 462 Washington Avenue, 1252 5th Street, 1709 Pine, 1370 Sanford. Summary request. This is to request that the City Commission concur with the findings of the Housing Board of Appeals that the structures are unsafe, substandard, a public nuisance, and that they be demolished within 30 days or infraction tickets may be issued. It is further requested that administration be directed to obtain bids for the demolition of the structures, and that the mayor and the city clerk be authorized and directed to execute a contract for demolition with the lowest responsible bidder, or staff may issue infraction tickets to the owner, agent, or responsible party if they do not demolish the structure. Staff recommendation to concur with the Housing Board of Appeals' decision to demolish.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience here to speak on 1258 Fifth Street? Is there anyone here to speak on 462 Washington Avenue? Is there anyone here to speak on 1252 Fifth Street? Is there anyone here to speak on 1709 Pine? Is there anyone here to speak on 1370 Sanford?
William Seneca on behalf of Willie Hill.
Okay, sir, you're here on that property?
Yes.
Okay, we'll conduct the ones that there's no contest to, and then we will proceed with those on individual. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would move that we concur with the Housing Board of Appeals notice in order to demolish 1258 Fifth Street, 462 Washington Avenue, and 1709 Pine.
Second.
It's been moved by the Vice Mayor, seconded by Commissioner Johnson, to concur with the Housing Board of Appeals to demolish 1258 Fifth Street, 462 Washington Avenue, and 1709 Pine Street. Any discussion? Not roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Spataro?
Yes.
Commissioner German?
Yes.
Commissioner Ritz-Masiviga?
Yes.
Commissioner Turnquist?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Mayor Gallron?
Yes.
Commissioner Hood?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. Vice Mayor?
Thank you. So we may begin discussion. I would move that we concur with the Housing Board of Appeals notice in order to demolish 1252 Fifth Street.
Second.
It's been moved by the Vice Mayor, seconded by Commissioner German, to demolish 1252 Fifth Street. We lead off on a staff report on 1252 Fifth Street, and then we will invite the interested party up after the staff report.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. The house at 1252 Fifth Street, Safe Built reports that the house, obviously is in dangerous, and it's been abandoned over on Fifth Street. It needs a roof. Siding must be fixed. Needs all new wiring, furnace, and the ductwork, plumbing, insulation throughout the entire house. The windows do not meet energy code, drywall, and must have a total new kitchen, and the foundation must be fixed. When they went and did their inspections on the home, the range was somewhere between $30,000 and $70,000 to fix that home. The state equalized value of that home is approximately $13,500, which put its value around $27,000. Like I said, it's from even the street, you can tell the visible deterioration of the home. The 2013 summer and winter taxes are owed, and the 2014 winter taxes are owed. The 2014 summer taxes have been paid. The owner of the home, which I believe is here today, did not attend the Housing Board of Appeals meeting, and so thus, after a discussion with the Housing Board of Appeals, they moved to have the house demolished on the information given to them. And as stated, the gentleman is here today to speak.
Okay, we have an addendum on this dated today's date, 1252 Fifth Street. Since the packet information was submitted, the owner, Francisco Lorenzo, is that you, sir? Yes, sir. Did schedule an interior inspection by Kurt Briggs, and the following additional items were found to be in need of permits: new roof, siding, new wiring, furnace and ductwork, plumbing and water heater installation throughout house, windows to energy code, drywall, total new kitchen, mixed foundation damage. This was in addition to the packet, and now the additional items listed were $40,000 in addition to the first estimate. So that's in addition as well. And I believe all of you received the addendum. Okay. Thank you, Chief. Mr. Lorenzo, if you would like to approach, if we could just have your name and your residence address, and then you can make your statement to the commission, sir.
My name is Francisco Lorenzo. The property I'm talking about is 1252 Fifth Street. I live in Chicago, Illinois.
Okay.
I missed the first meeting, yes. I didn't get the letter till late. I like the place, I like the city, Muskegon. I know the numbers don't match if it's worth fixing or not. But I'm willing to give it a try. I just don't know what else to do.
All right.
I'm here just to hopefully stop
Okay.
from it.
At this juncture, when it has gone to this point and with that level of deterioration, if an individual has the means and is serious and wanting to forestall the process, the next step would be to put a $5,000 bond down with the circuit court. And it's, what was it called again?
They file a writ of superintending control.
A writ of superintending control. And that would stop the process. They would maintain the $5,000 to assure that you could get on a timeline to get your permits and reconstruction and rehabilitation going. And if that were not to occur in the timeline or the agreement with the court, then that money would be kept to be utilized towards the demolition of the residence. At this point, because of the severe deterioration and the amount of time that has, gone into this process, would probably continue to go forward. But that is the one option available to you at this point in order to halt our proceeding, is by getting to the court. And staff can give you additional information on getting over there and how to proceed.
Okay, excellent.
Okay?
Thank you.
sir.
Appreciate it.
Any other? Roll call, please.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Renzema-Sibiga,
Yes.
Commissioner Turnquist,
Yes.
excuse me, Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Mayor Gallron,
Yes.
Commissioner Hood,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Spataro.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. We have a staff report on 1370 Sanford.
We
before
need a
call.
motion, Your Honor?
I'm sorry.
I would
Okay.
move that we concur with the Housing Board of Appeals notice and order to demolish 1370 Sanford.
Support.
Been moved by the Vice Mayor, seconded by Commissioner Johnson, to concur with the Housing Board of Appeals notice in order to demolish 1370 Sanford. Chief?
Good evening. This particular house, 1370 Sanford, like the other house, is in our blight fight area. This happens to be on one of our gateway streets, Sanford. It was identified quite some time ago, because it's right across from the high school, as a dangerous abandoned building. When we started this process, it was started back in November of 2014, and the process started. Mr. Willie Hill did respond to our notifications and did attend our Housing Board of Appeals. This was tabled a couple times because there was an ownership issue. It sounds like this was bought on a land contract and so on and so forth, and he had other people help represent him. But basically, he seems to be the surface owner of this property. And once again, this home is valued at approximately about $29,000. Mr. Briggs had gone through there and done inspections. Also, the outside appearance of the house shows its overall condition. The 2014 taxes are owed on this property, and part of the summer and all of the winter. Mr. Hill signed, like I said, for the certificates. As I said, it was tabled. And once again, if you look at the entire file, you can see the condition of his house. And we just do not believe, after going to the Housing Board of Appeals, and they concurred with us, that Mr. Hill just is not capable, does not have the resources to actually fix this house. And there was just no indication of that at the hearings, and therefore we asked that either A, that you move towards the superintending control like we just mentioned, because he could be responsible for the civil infractions, or, the cost of dealing the property, because it just, in our opinion, cannot be rehabilitated.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Mr. Hill?
Good afternoon. William Sininger on behalf of Mr. Hill. I've reviewed the report. I just really got involved in this, but I understand the situation as it exists and the reports that have come out from Safe Build indicating the severity of some of the items that need to be addressed. I think in this case with Mr. Hill, I think he purchased a pig in a poke, for want of a better phrase, and I think that he was, perhaps the situation that he was in got misrepresented to him. I don't know whether that's necessarily an excuse. It's a reason why we're here, but it might not be an excuse. One of the items that does, I guess, that we need to address, though, is that Mr. Hill was purchasing this property along with maybe 2 or 3 other pieces of property. I think there were 3 other ones. I'm sorry, 2 other ones on a land contract. And I don't know whether it's just coincidental or whether it's by design, but the time that Mr. Hill actually received a deed to the property was in January of 2015, perhaps when the underlying owner was also advised of the severity of the issues and the possible ramifications of not addressing those in terms of the city. So lo and behold, Mr. Hill receives a quitclaim deed for the piece of property that he believes he still owes on and was going to stop paying on, gets a quitclaim deed for that piece of property, but doesn't get the deed for the property that he thinks he's paid off. So we are at a situation right now where I understand the commission doesn't want to have a dangerous house. Mr. Hill's advised me that he's tried to put the windows in and do some other stuff to try to secure the house. But I'm not really sure from the standpoint of infractions and those things that I'm really sure that this is the proper party if there are infractions. I may need to go back in. I'm not sure how much time I'm going to spend on this with Mr. Hill. Depends on how much time he wants me to spend on it. But going back into this situation and finding out whether there really should be someone else named if there is an infraction that's going to come from this, that there shouldn't be someone else that's named. So I don't know whether Mr. Hill's disclosed. I think maybe, I don't know whether the commission has it, maybe Mr. Schreier has the file on it indicating where the deed came from, who the land contract vendor was, but I really am trying to work through this issue with Mr. Hill. You probably are aware, I mean, in looking at it, the amount of work in this, it actually looks like you're rebuilding a whole house. And I don't know whether Mr. Hill, I don't think he has the wherewithal to go through each and every one of these items. They're monumental items, rewiring, replumbing the whole house, basically gutting it, maybe taking it down to the studs and redoing everything. I'm sure Mr. Hill has the financial wherewithal to do that, especially within a timeline that might be imposed by this commission. So I guess that what I'm here for is to ask the commission, if you're not going to permit a tabling of this for 30 days, at least for the demolition part, I would hope that we could work through some issue on this, or through the issues of who may actually be a responsible party in this case before any infractions or we have anybody cited on it. I think that that's an important issue as far as Mr. Hill's concerned. To the extent that the commission could find its way to table it for 30 days, which I'm not holding out a lot of hope for, we would ask the commission to do that. So.
Yeah, I think at this juncture, seeing as how the matters proceeded to this point, and the structure is in horrible condition.
I can see that
It's,
from the safe build.
And for the the health, safety, and the welfare the neighborhood and our overall initiative to, restore our targeted areas, I believe we should proceed. You've stated that Mr. Hill's probably not in a position at this point even to put up the $5,000 for the superintending control. But at this juncture, with just the level of work, and as every rainstorm comes through, the structure, continues to suffer more. The other issue of determining who the property may actually belong to, is separate from this proceeding, which is here, strictly to determine whether or not we're going to concur for the demolition. But I'm certain that we would want to know the truth as well, and who ultimately holds title to the dirt at this juncture.
All right,
Okay.
thank you. Mr. Hill wants to say something.
Sure.
That's okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Willie Hill. Yes, from the last time I was up here, and you told me to get a lawyer and try to get my money back. So this is what I'm trying to do right now, so,
Right.
Yep. Well, thank you.
Sure enough, Mr. Hill. And good luck with trying to track down the other party.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments? Roll call, please.
Commissioner dsetvmuskegon?
Yes.
Commissioner Turnquist?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Mayor Gallman?
Yes.
Commissioner Hood?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Spataro?
Yes.
Commissioner German?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item B, please.
Elsie Walker, lease agreement with Lumberjacks hockey team, city manager, summer request. For the past 6 months, city staff has been working with the Muskegon Lumberjacks ownership group to transition the group from facility manager to tenant. After much consideration, the team and city staff mutually agreed that an ideal time to initiate the transition would be upon the completion of the 2014-2015 hockey season. An important aspect of the early transition was the ability to enter into a long-term lease agreement that would improve the marketability of the hockey team. The key terms of the proposed lease are as follows. The lease has an initial 3-year term that can be extended up to 2 additional years if the hockey team sells at least 80,000 tickets in years 2 and/or 3. The hockey team will have access to certain office space, locker room, practice and game ice, concession area, merchandise sales areas, and certain common areas. The Lumberjacks will make an annual lump sum payment to the city equal to $12,500 and provide a ticket revenue share with the city as follows. $1 per ticket for the first 60,000 tickets printed, 37,500 of which is due at the same time as the annual lump sum payment. $0 per ticket for the next 12,500 tickets printed. $2 per ticket for the next 10,000 tickets printed. $3 per ticket for the next 10,000 tickets printed. $4 per ticket for any ticket printed in excess of 80,000 tickets. The hockey team and city are to split certain revenues related to advertising. The hockey team will provide its own ushers, security, and post-game arena cleaning. The hockey team will keep net revenues from concession sales during their games. The hockey team will pay $750 preseason game and $1,000 per playoff game hosted at the arena. Staff recommendation, to approve the lease and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson?
I move to approve the lease between the City of Muskegon and WC Hockey LLC and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Johnson, seconded by Commissioner Hood, to approve the lease and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign. I believe you have a correction.
Yeah, I did have a correction. It's correct in the lease, but on the cover sheet, when it says $4 per any ticket in advance of 80,000, it should be 92,501. So the 92,501st ticket sold will be the one that starts with the $4 per.
Okay.
So does that mean that the next, the one D gets revised up. Sorry, maybe I'm
go right ahead.
misunderstanding this.
No.
You're basically lifting the 80,000 ticket ceiling to 90.
Yeah, the math was just wrong on the cover sheet, so
Okay.
it was correct. See, if you do the math, it's
Yeah.
for the first 60,000, it's $1.
Yeah.
Then 12,500 is 0, and then the next 10,000 is $2, the next 10,000 is
So
3.
it should be 92.50.
Yeah, that number's just
Okay.
written wrong in there
I
on
just
the
was
cover
wondering
sheet.
if there was
Okay.
I wanted to make sure we were covering all the tickets sold.
Yeah.
There wasn't another donut.
Yep, the only donut is that donut that's on item B there, the 12,500.
Otherwise, it is correct in the
Yep.
lease
Yeah.
itself.
Correct. And really, that 12,500, just to clarify that, if you see that there was a $12,500 down payment, that's considered rent. That's where that is. And the
Yeah.
thought process was, we wanted that guaranteed, just in case they didn't sell over 60,000 tickets. So it's a way to guarantee us the 72,500 tickets sold. And we're just kind of taking that portion up front and then having a donut hole a little bit later in the year.
Any other questions? Commissioner Turnquist?
The lumberjacks have a responsibility for the ushers and security personnel. Do we have any say as to qualifications of the security personnel?
No, my guess is no, we don't. They'll probably use the same folks that they used in previous years. And I see they do have a couple people here that might be able to answer questions about that. But they will probably use the same folks. The same way they did it last year and the year before and the year before is probably how they would do it in future years.
They are part of a recognized security business or organization?
Correct. And so they would do their own cleaning, their own ushers, and their own security for every home game.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, just a comment. I'm glad to see us moving forward in this direction. Twice in my tenure, we've put out management of the arena for bids. Twice we got 0 responses, and by default, we're left with the, whoever the current owner of the hockey team was at the time to manage the arena. That model clearly is no longer working, and we need to bring this back in-house. I certainly think that over the next few years, particularly with the good faith discussions we've been having with the county and other partners, that we can come up with a good long-term sustainable solution for the arena. But we have looked at selling it. We have looked at finding somebody to manage it as just the arena manager. We've tried things like trying to find somebody to pay us naming rights. And all those different things have, when they were attempted initially, were unsuccessful. So I think this is reasonable. I think this helps provide cost certainty for the hockey team so that they can continue to provide us a high quality of hockey for people to enjoy in this town. And hopefully this is just one step in getting what is a very important public facility that the whole area, not just the city, enjoys, back on a sound financial footing. So I'm totally in favor of this, and I think we're going in the right direction.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, gentlemen? If not, roll call, please.
Commissioner Turnquist?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Mayor Gallman?
Yes.
Commissioner Hood?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Spataro?
Yes.
Commissioner German?
Yes.
Commissioner Ritz-Sipiga?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Is there any other business? Vice Mayor?
Just one quick item. I'd like to acknowledge a very successful new event in Muskegon this past weekend. The Susan G. Komen Stand Up for the Cure was held at Harbortown Beach, one of 3 similar events they hold in the country. According to the event organizers, they exceeded last year's attendance at Miami. So I think we acquitted ourselves well here in West Michigan. Hopefully it was successful in raising money for women who need breast cancer services, particularly low-income women who require assistance for screening. The money that was raised stays locally and is intended to offset the costs of screening and education and the other services. We're in a community where unfortunately too many women, particularly African American and Latino women, get screened later. and therefore their cancers are caught later and their success rates are lower as a result. So this is critically important for our whole community, and hopefully this is the first of what will be an annual fundraiser to help local women with this critical health issue.
Very good. And thank you for representing the citizens of Muskegon at the event this past weekend, Vice Mayor. Anything else? If not, we'll take time for public comment. Is there a Larry Carpenter in the audience? Mr. Carpenter, you've requested time to speak. If you'd like to come to the podium, just give your name and address and give us your concern.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, and the Commissioners. My concern is concerning the terrace, the ordinance for that, and the construction of Webster Street. I live at 601, and also there's a neighbor at 589 West Webster, Mr. and Mrs. Bell. My concern was the sprinkler system itself, the piping, which was removed to do the construction itself. What's going on now is that we need to water it because of the seeding that's there now. And the ordinance was saying to take care of it with the watering of it. But it kind of seems to me that you destroyed the tools to use to water it, the sprinkler system, and it wasn't put back. If we destroy it, put it back. My concern is not really for it to for the city expense to do it. It's that I could do that. But I was looking down at my elderly neighbors down there, and I do have some pictures if you guys want to see that, of what I mean for that. I guess what I'm saying is take a look at the ordinance. Is there a way to change that ordinance or look at it or revise the ordinance to be able to repair if the construction removes that property? That way we can take care of the ordinance and conform to it and make sure that the property is maintained. I take pride in my community and take pride in the neighborhood, but I just think what is right is just right. If we remove the property or destroy the property, replace it. And that's my concerns, and thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Question there.
Sure.
Yeah, I know we've had this complaint before
Right.
us, and I got a chance to speak with Mr. Carpenter over the weekend, and he actually called me, and he was about the third person to address this matter. So I guess my question is to the city, what are we going to do about this? And will they be held accountable if they don't water, or will they be issued a citation or anything like that?
No, we essentially capped the underground sprinkling, I guess, on the private property side, and left it the property owner's responsibility. If they wanted to reinstall or expand the sprinkling to the terrace side, they'd have the ability to do that, but there's not a requirement that they do so. But we capped them, and Mohammed had he's not here, but without putting words in his mouth, I know we had some concerns. Some of them, I don't think he thought were installed to today's standard, and he thought that we could get into some issues if we started going in and fixing underground sprinkling that wasn't up to today's standard or didn't meet the code. He thought that should just be the responsibility of the property owner. All of the other terraces were kind of brought back to the same standard, all up and down Western, regardless of whether they had sprinkling before or after. They were put back with black dirt and essentially hydro seeded.
Mr.
Mayor,
Ron?
just so there's no confusion on what was just said, you're not required to water it, but you would be required to maintain it, so.
Mow it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you got to mow the terrace, just so people don't misunderstand what was said. But there's no requirement that you water it.
Yeah. Ron Pesch?
Thank you very much. I just want to call to your attention the building known as the Annex in downtown Muskegon. I caught the article in MLive indicating the plans for the facility. And To be honest with you, I think it's great. I'm thrilled to see the building going to be used, repurposed. And, but what I wanted to bring to your attention was the historic nature of that building. It was actually built in 1925 by a gentleman that ran a bus company called Safety Motor Coach Lines. Safety Motor Coach Lines ultimately became the nucleus of what we know today as Greyhound lines. Those buses that were going between Muskegon and Grand Rapids had a nickname called the Greyhounds. Mr. Ekstrom was originally from Ludington, moved to Minnesota, became involved with the company that Greyhound tracks down as its original start in 1914, but has moved back to Michigan, really led to the creation of that company. That building was built in 1925 when he moved headquarters from Grand Rapids to Muskegon. And over the span of about 2.5 years, built an incredible success story in this town. It's one of those hidden stories that we've never really played up here. So I really just wanted to bring to the attention of the commission the historic nature of that building, and my hope that that will be recognized when it is redone, and especially when new windows go in there, that we're paying attention to the historic nature of the building. To be honest with you, it probably would qualify for historic tax credits if somebody wanted to pursue that. I would certainly think that it's an ideal location for another historical marker in the city of Muskegon talking about that story. The story of Ekstrom in a brief form appears in the current travel guide for Muskegon County. And what I've included for you guys is just a little write-up on the company and how that happened here in Muskegon. Currently, I'm working on a PowerPoint presentation, which is done. I'm just looking to get that out. It's scheduled to show in Grand Haven next year, telling the story of Ekstrom and Safety Motor Coach Lines. But if anyone has any other interest in that story, please let me know. Like I say, I think the idea is fantastic. I look forward to what will be done there, but please don't lose that history of that building. It's something that we recently discovered. Most people know it as an old plum store. In reality, it was originally the headquarters of Safety Motor Coach Lines. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Yeah, cool.
See you around the block. Are there any other members of the audience who would like to address the commission this evening? No?
I'd like to go back and talk about the issues on Webster Avenue with regard to the water lines. This is on private property in which,
And the terraces.
No.
and the terraces?
No, in the
No,
terraces.
the terrace-
Only the terraces
public right
that
of
were
way.
capped.
Correct.
None on private property were capped or
They were capped just,
disrupted and not returned
as far as I
to a
know,
performing.
they were capped just behind the sidewalk as far as my understanding.
Okay, so it's a terrace issue and not a private property issue. Okay.
Okay.
Well, may I speak?
Sure. By all means.
This is my neighbor, Mr. and Mrs. Dale. This sat that way till 2 days ago, when I started going to the engineering department and talking to different people about the sprinkler system that used to be there. It was basically tore out of there and threw up on the lawn itself. So part of it is a private property issue because it was did by the property owner to put it back, to have it there. So we're able to make sure that the grass grow, and it is beautiful. But this was torn out, nothing else replaced, and the expenses will fall upon the property owner to put it back. I don't think this is very expensive, but I'm not worried about that. So much as, my neighbor really got me that, my elderly neighbor. How are they supposed to do that? When they had the tools out there to conform to it. Now it's ripped up, there's nothing there, nobody's gonna replace it. That's just my concerns with that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Now, the
sprinkler lines that's laying out on the grass right there on that picture, is that from the private property? Or was that from the terrace and it
That was
to
from the
private
terrace
property
during the construction. Tore it out,
and threw it on
threw it
private
on there.
property?
It didn't get capped till a couple days ago. This sat that way for about 2 or 3 days ago, because I started asking questions about that. But this is my neighbor. I capped mine myself. This is my property. It's a white cap there. I did that. I did that about a week ago. It wasn't never did. It wasn't never capped in the, after the rip out. In order for me to water the remaining grass that I had on my property, I had to go out and cap that to even get my grass to be watered on the sides and in the back. So I guess, again, is all I'm saying is, you know, we tore it out. That's,
Commissioner?
What is the, I mean, is that an encroach? Obviously, the sprinkling systems are encroaching on city property. I'm assuming this happens when we do other terrace construction projects too. I mean, are people told not to put sprinkler systems in the terrace? And that if, you know, construction takes place?
No, but with the, because I can speak from experience, is that, you know, there's the understanding that the utilities in the city maintain rights to get in for the right-of-way for construction, for water mains, for utility lines. When we had DTE come through down Palmer, they came through and with the big trenchers and took out my lines, but they're not culpable for my lines because they're in the right of way. Although, you know, I got to mow it. But and people with rock gardens and other type of plantings instead of, you know, traditional grass took theirs all up and out, you know, prior to DTE going through and laying the new gas lines, and had to restore all that themselves. So, you know, it's something that, you know, even I have experienced. But with having to back up the water if I'm on the terrace if I wanted to, you know, I had to eat that. DTE was not culpable because they don't figure that into the cost of their construction project. And that's why they have the right-of-way.
Sure, yeah, well, yeah, it's the terrace, it's.
The terrace.
It's not your property,
Right.
so.
Commissioner?
Well, just so we don't paint DTE too bad, when they,
Yeah.
when they came through and did our lines on, and took out the grass on the terrace and the sprinkler system, if you were out there watching, they came back through and replaced the sprinkler system and threw some fertilizer on the
I mean, if
grass.
it was intact?
Yeah.
Right, if it was just flapping in the wind.
Yeah, if they had messed it up, they came in, they actually repaired mine.
Did they?
Yeah, they had broke it, and they came back, you know, I called them downstairs and said, hey, what are we gonna do about the sprinkler system? He says, oh, we'll be back. And they came back and they repaired it.
Wish
I don't
they'd
know if
done
I was
that out
lucky or
strong.
what, but they did it.
Well, you're luckier than I was. Commissioner?
Yeah, you know, just listening to Mr. Carpenter and some of the other citizens, you know, I'm looking at the project that just got completed down there on Webster, and we talk about image.
yes.
And to do something and, you know, not complete it, you know, it just seems to me that it should have been completed, you know. I mean, they shouldn't bear, the citizens are taxpayers, you know, and that's what I look at, you know. They pay their taxes, you know, faithfully, and, you know, not putting that burden on them. I think that we should kind of look at this and maybe just, you know, sit down and talk about what it is, what we can do if we have funding to go back, hold whoever accountable and see if we can, you know, fix this problem, because they wouldn't be here if it wasn't a problem or a concern. So.
Vice Mayor?
Well, you know, I understand where you're coming from, and certainly if I'd put something in, I would want it replaced. I get that. I also look at the fact that what I've been hearing as we've had these comments come forward over the last few weeks is that, one, the terrace is significantly different in configuration now than it was before. So putting back what they had would not begin to cover the new terrace as far as adequate sprinkling. So, I mean, we certainly would not be in a position where we're going to put in new sprinkling for people to cover the new configuration of the terrace. I mean, that would add up quickly when you're looking at the street projects we do around the city that involve removing terraces. I could see perhaps using some sort of depreciated amount like we do in other situations where the residual value of what's been disturbed is replaced, and if they want to add to that, the property owner can do that. But ultimately, you're talking about something that a private individual has placed on public property at their own risk to enhance the value of their adjoining property. And, a lot of people are willing to do that. I've planted trees at my own expense on my terrace because the ones that were there died. That's a choice I made as a homeowner. There was nothing I can do when Consumers Energy came down and cut a third of the crown of one of my trees off because they decided it was in their right of way. That's a risk I took. And, I'm not expecting compensation for that.
Vice Mayor?
Let me finish. So I think that's the situation where we're at with this. I think we're aware of the issue. I would refer it back to staff. I certainly don't think any of us are in a position to make any decisions on this tonight. But I do think we need to look beyond one project where people have not been assessed. Like we still have some folks who are paying on street assessments when we were still doing street assessments. And we're talking about what is ultimately public property. And to come up with a solution, if we need to make a change, that takes all of those types of issues into account. And so I appreciate you coming forward with the concern. I understand where you're coming from. But I do think we have an issue bigger than we have two concerned property owners or perhaps a couple of more on Webster Avenue on this issue. So I think we need to listen and then have that discussion with staff, and we can make informed decisions if we feel there's a need to change current policy or ordinance on this topic.
Commissioner?
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just reiterate that I think this is obviously not the first time we've done a construction project on a terrace and a sprinkler system's been involved. I would hope, that like anything, we're consistent, and and I think it's best for staff to figure out what we've done in the past and apply. And if the policy is not good, if we have something that's unfair to property owners, then we should consider it. But I hope that at this point, we're just carrying out what, has been done in other places. And if that's the case, then we need to consider whether that's a good policy that they should be following or not.
Commissioner?
This was brought up within the last month. Someone came and Mohammed was here.
Right, the
They're sitting
gentleman.
right there.
Okay, and there was question about who was responsible for it. And at that time, I think Mohammed said they didn't feel they were responsible for it, but there was a directive, I think, that came from you, Frank, if we broke it, we'd fix it. Isn't that what's said?
That's not the response I received last Monday.
No, that's not what he said.
No, we referred it to staff to have conversation with the property owner.
And I followed up with Mohammed, and he reiterated that this was how that we've consistently dealt with these in the past. They're typically capped, or I guess we didn't cap yours, but they're typically capped, and then the property owner has the option to go back and reinstall it or not reinstall it. But again, whether that's the right policy or not going forward, I guess that's a directive I can take from you guys. I wish Mohammed was here to give some input into it.
But it's a conversation that, now that it's up, it's a conversation we will have. We can do certainly have a review of it. But again, you know, all the points, continuity of what's, you know, occurred in the past, how we've handled projects, because we do have to look at the potential of, you know, expense to the rest of the citizens and, you know, restoration of anything on right-of-ways where you do a lot of digging and destruction and reconstruction. But, you know, the citizens, you know, have brought these concerns, and we need to shush this out as best possible. We certainly do, and we will.
Okay, but my issue is not about expense, because if the piping goes back in place, it's not very expensive
Right.
for the property owner to just put a different head, which would give you more spray, because the terrace is wider.
Right.
So it's still not a big expense. I'm still willing to change my sprinkler head to conform to the bigger size.
Right.
So to me, it's not about redo my system to the state-of-the-art sprinkler system, no. Place the piping, what was destroyed, and I'll put the new heads on and go. Thanks again for listening to my concerns.
Oh, our pleasure, Mr. Carpenter. Thank you. Please.
Back again. Gary Camp, 475 West Webster. I'm glad we opened up dialogue again. It's a whole lot more than we had last time I was here. I left here, honestly, with pretty good feeling, I guess, based on response. I talked to a few folks as I was walking out. And I guess I expected someone to get back with me, and I had to initiate that conversation. Nobody got back with me. I eventually sent an email out and solicited that conversation. But a couple points. Again, I said last time I was here, we want to improve the image of this area. This is not the way to do it, fellas. It just isn't the way to do it. And furthermore, I got a question, I guess. I see they just reseeded again. Whose expense? They just reseeded because it got washed out, because obviously it's not getting the proper water. Whose expense was that?
The seed that would come under the contract with the
That's my guess.
project.
I don't know if there was a charge back to us or not. To tell you the truth, I have no idea.
But we're asking for the same thing again. And the other thing is, before you tore out, before the other irrigation system got tore out, there was no notice to folks that, hey, this is going to happen. I know recently we finally decided we're going to notify the people on Muskegon that that's going to happen, and that's good. At least they can make their good decision now. But we weren't alerted that our sprinkler was going to go out until it was already laying on the terrace. I just think it could have been handled a whole lot better. And if you want this area to prosper, and I think we got to be more proactive than that. So.
And you're right, sometimes there's too many assumptions, like when things are getting ripped up, like terraces for whether it's utility work or whatnot, that's a hazard that, you know, may or may not occur. But, yeah, better notification is certainly a good point.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that would like to address the commission? Commissioner Johnson?
Foremost, I'd like to thank you gentlemen and your neighbors for maintaining your terraces and maintaining them well, having put in an underground sprinkling system and keeping up that property. That does improve the image of the neighborhood, and it is part of what we're working here in Muskegon about putting out a positive image. And it is ironic that we do this project, we put the seed down, you're told water this regularly so the seed takes root, and you don't have the built-in means to water it anymore. It is unfortunate, and I understand it is a public right-of-way, and there is that risk of what you do in a public right-of-way. It can be disturbed, whether by a utility company that has the rights to the public right-of-way or by the city. Sending a reply giving you the message of you don't have to water it doesn't suffice in my book. I think there is cause for us to give greater consideration of this and revisit the policy and make sure that the policy going forward is applied consistently for the whole of the city. I did like what the vice mayor indicated in terms of doing depreciated value of the underground sprinkler system, having that being compensation. That is somewhere where we could start. I could see that as being paired with, getting a compensation with that, being paired with the property owner putting in, replacing the equipment that was disturbed, putting in underground sprinkling again. I would like to see ways in which the city can come alongside the property owners to try to restore that which was disturbed, at least with regard to underground sprinkler systems. You get into flowers and ornamental, that gets a little carried away, and it's kind of hard to depreciate and also properly assess the value and then restore.
It all
But-
becomes a sticky wicket.
But I
It
think
gets-
with
it gets complicated
the underground
quickly.
sprinkler system alone, I think is something, that's an investment that these property owners have made to maintain that property. And if we're disturbing it, I think that we need to consider how can we partner with them to restore that, to continue to project a positive image for our neighborhoods and for our city. The last thing we want are dried up terraces and seed that never takes hold on Muskegon Webster when we're trying to revitalize that area.
But if we went to that extent, remember, we wouldn't be replacing it beyond what pre-existed. So if you had a 2-foot strip of a terrace and now it's 14.
It would be incumbent upon the property
Right,
owner.
okay.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, there we go, okay. Okay. Anything else?
I think we should just ask staff to consider this, and I think we need to make an informed decision and just apply it uniformly, because every street deserves the same thing, and I think the city needs to determine, what's the most equitable and, sometimes, expedient way to get these projects done, so.
Okay. Very good. Yeah, well, we'll talk more on it, for sure. Is there anything else? Not, Commissioner Hood?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Hood, seconded by Commissioner Johnson to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Well, then you're out of here. Okay. Boogie woogie.
Have a birthday. Thank you.